You just heard Cocaine Blues, Pharis and Jason Romero. Probably the best cover on the album. And just, you had to dig so deep to find that song.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the original one that I heard was Dick Justice, and that's been out for a while on some old time compilations. I think maybe Times Ain't Like They Used to Be came out around 10 years ago, and then of course that was recorded in 1928, and I was like, well, I wonder if there's one that came out before that, and then I found Luke Jordan's version. I'd heard a few other tunes by Luke Jordan, and I heard his version and loved them both, and kind of mixed the two, and then threw a little bit of myself in there, and came up with that one. And that one was one of the tunes I really thought would be enhanced by having some of our friends in, specifically fiddle and bass on that one. We had the great fiddler Josh Raby and the great bass player out of Seattle, John Hurd, playing with us, and that's just a fun tune. I mean, it's fairly depressing, the abuse of cocaine, but it's fun to play.
Exactly. It's just this swinging song. It's definitely different than what I typically hear in folk or bluegrass, that type of energy. And at the same time, it's just not going well for the character in the song.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that difference that you can get with really sad lyrics, but then a fairly upbeat sounding tune.
Absolutely. What's the farthest back in musical tradition you've ever traveled for a song?
That one is probably some of the earliest stuff that we've ever
certainly
researched into, because it
mid-20s, late
mid
20s.
twenties,
We
late
seem
twenties,
to
yeah.
be going to that era a lot with various artists, but I can't think. I know that we've delved deeper on occasion, but I can't really think of a specific tune and its first recorded date right off the top of my head.
I would actually, you know what, the one that I would say is probably, there's two that would be the earliest ones, and one of them would be on the last record that we put out, the Long Gone Out West Blues, and It Just Suits Me was a song by the Georgia Sea Island Singers, and they are one of the longest, if not the longest, continuously operating musical group in the United States since 1904. And so some of their recordings, if you can get some of the really, really early stuff from them, it's like very much dawn of the recording era and things that were being commercially replicated. But then the other one that I'm thinking about was one that we sang on the very first album that we put out as a duo, A Passing Glimpse, and that's the song from the great Carter family called Engine 143. And Engine 143 has the great distinction of being the first song that A.P. Carter ever heard Sarah singing before they got married, and that was the song that drew him to her when he was going to their house and he heard this amazing voice singing the song, and that's what drew him towards their house. And in the end, they ended up getting married, and that, to me, that song signifies how the Carter family came together. And that song, Engine 143, essentially changed the face of music as we know it today, in my mind. So that would probably be as far back, I guess.
Wow, the Carter family put out some great records, and I think the one that stands out for most everyone, I'm sure, is "Will the Circle Be Unbroken."
It's a funny song, isn't it? Because there's so many people. Like if you're sitting and informally jamming with a bunch of friends, our musician peers and whatnot, that song would never ever come up in a jam. I've never heard somebody play that song informally in a jam, but I have in folk circles, and I have, at memorials and all that kind of stuff, and that song just sticks in people's hearts, no matter what. Almost everyone knows that song. It's crazy.
When I went to see Willie Nelson, he ended on that. Alison Krauss, Casey Musgraves coming on stage to join him, and it just shows the enduring power of some of these older records. He has so many wonderful tracks in his arsenal, but I don't think anything could have brought the crowd together as much at the end as such an old song. It just shows the enduring power of... I love old music too, is basically what I'm saying.
we just went on a tour with a show called the Vinyl Cafe up here in Canada, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's our public radio version. It's similar to a Prairie Home Companion, but it's got a lot of differences. But it's the same sort of story and music and live audience format. And every night we ended the show with "Keep on the Sunny Side." And everyone in the audience sang along. Everybody knows these old Carter family songs. It's crazy the impact that they've had on music.
Absolutely. It sort of disappoints me that modern country, maybe for the first time, you're really not seeing what impact they had as much.
That is true.
Like, I think they were a huge influence for most of the history of country music. Mm-hmm. And I just can't recognize some of the older influences anymore.
No, not at all. I mean, there's a great argument to be made that modern country really isn't country.
Yeah.
I think, and I've talked with some other DJs at this station, and we tend to agree that what's called Americana today is really what country has evolved into.
I would tend to agree with you, yeah.
I think today's country is more of a pop music with a Telecaster, I think. Is how I think.
Or maybe a pedal steel or some banjo.
Yeah. It's ratings-based music.
Yeah.
And you guys are definitely far away from that, fortunately.
Well, we can't afford the kind of producers that they use, so we got to figure something out.
Oh, I think there's more than that to it.
I know, I'm just kidding.
All right, I'm going to play one more. Actually, I'll play a few from the album, but I'm going to let you go after this one. It's called There's No Companion, and tell me why there's no companion like the misery of an unfilled desire.
Oh, that line fermented around in my head for a couple of months, just that starting line. And I wrote it for a friend who was having just an awful time with a guy that she was desperately in love with. And he was great when he was around, but he wasn't so great when he was on the road and away from her. And it was crazy because she wanted him so badly, and she just wanted him to see how much she loved him and wanted him to love her the same amount. So watching her go through that heart-wrenching experience was amazing inspiration for this song for me. So that's where that came from.
Definitely the favorite one-liner from that record.
Oh, right on. Thank you.
All right, There's No Companion.